Welcome to TWC. My name is Magembe. In today's episode, we'll be looking at beekeeping business plan, part 2. We have already discussed part 1, which was on the capex. Today, we'll be looking at production and O&M, that is operations and maintenance. If you become a beekeeper, what you need to understand. So let's work on that. So this is beekeeping. Business plan. And as I've said this, we will look at production. We will look at production and find them. That's production and operations and maintenance. So we will again, we want in this episode what exactly we want to establish. We want to see, does this business make sense? Does it make money? Again, of course, you could be involved in beekeeping for different reasons. One of them, of course, is to preserve the environment. And another major reason that most people get involved in beekeeping is actually to make money. And what has happened is that, most people is that, they've been following the traditional school system, where you have gone to school, high school, you have gone to college, and you're specialized in a certain area to work. And then what happens is that you get a job, you realize that you're not enjoying the job you're doing. So there's a lot of people who are stuck in jobs that they don't like. They are stuck in mediocre jobs that they don't like. And we are trying to provide a solution for people who are stuck in jobs that they don't like, and the people are interested in preserving the environment and who like beekeeping. So, to get involved in beekeeping, first of all, it has to be your passion. You have to love the bees to get involved in this. So then, once we talk about this, we need to look at the real numbers. And if you're interested in beekeeping, you'll be like, okay, does this make sense? So in today's episode, we'll be looking at production. And if you have watched my previous video, when I talked about capital expenditure, we were looking at the 20 types. So even today, we'll make some assumptions before we start looking at the numbers. So let's look at the assumptions that we want to make. Assumptions. So we, as last time, we are still dealing with the 20 land straw, hives, then we'll be selling honey, and then and why I'm saying that we'll be selling honey, and this is the assumption, it's because we need to understand that bees have many products. It's just not honey alone. There is honey, there is wax, there is propolis, there is venom. So there is so many things that we can get from bees. But what happens is that some of these other products, you need to be a bit advanced. But as a beginner, of course, honey is one of the cheapest and simplest products you can get from the bees. So I want to show you that even if you're only selling honey, you can make money. Actually, the other products are more expensive than honey. Wax is more expensive than honey. Propolis is more expensive than honey. Venom is more expensive than honey. But even royal jelly, more expensive than honey. But we will be looking at the most simple product that you can get from the bees, and the market is readily available. So we want to see, even if before we even go to the other products, are we still able to make money? Let's assume that you're not advanced to get equipment for harvesting venom, for harvesting propolis, for harvesting royal jelly. You're only dealing with honey. Can you be able to make money? That's kind of what we want to look at here. So, and then another assumption we're going to take is, again, the scenarios in Kenya. We are doing this here in Kenya. And of course, this can apply to a lot of African countries and, the tropical region. But even in Kenya, the scenario we're going to look at here today, it's in Western Kenya. That's in Western Kenya. Then the market, we will be looking at the availability of market. And the market, the assumption here is that the market is usually actually really available, local, and a city. A local, what I mean, that just even in your village, you have customers who need honey. And this is from experience. You come to big cities like Nairobi, honey is so much on high demand. So this will be your location where you'll be selling your honey. The market will be your local market. You can go to the nearby city and you sell your honey. And then another thing we need to understand is that the lifespan of the hives is actually 15 to 20 years. And of course, 15 to 20 years, it's made of good. It's wooden, so if you maintain your hives nicely, where they're not exposed to harsh weather, and you do always annual maintenance or quarterly maintenance, your hives can actually stay for 15 to 20 years. So these are the assumptions as we start to look at our business plan on production and operations and maintenance. These are the assumptions that you need to keep into consideration. So now let's start looking at let's look at production. I think I'm out of space. Let's look at our table. Let's make the table here on annual production. So, annual production. You should start with the item. Then the number of hives. Let's look at the harvest. That's kg per hive. We look at the frequency. Then total. Then we look at the price. We look at the price per kg. That is price, which is in Kenyan shillings per kg. Then let's find the amount. Let's do our table. And then we see how this one goes. We're gonna see how these numbers look like. So let's look at the first year, year one. Usually, again, as I said on my previous video when I was discussing the capital expenditure, that's capex for our business plan, is that you don't get your hives in one day and they get colonized. Of course, it takes a bit of time to colonize them. So let's assume the assumption we're going to have here is that the first year you have 15 hives that have been colonized. And from experience, what we have seen is that the first year, when you're harvesting, you get about 6 kgs per hive. And then, again, as I said, that usually once your hive has been colonized, it takes about 7 to 9 months to actually have your first harvest. So in the first year, you're gonna have about 2 harvests. So this will be 2. So if you do your math correctly here, you see that this one translates to 180 kgs of honey that you could have gotten in your first year. And then from experience, the prices differ, but what we've been able to sell, we usually sell about 800 shillings per kg. So the price per kg are going to be 800. If you do the math correctly, I want to make sure that I'm not making any mistake. If you do your math correctly, you see that this one translates to 144,000 Kenyan shillings. So this amount is in Kenyan shillings. So this is the amount of money you could have gotten from selling your honey in the first year. Let's look at year 2. Year 2, the assumption is that all your 20 hives have been colonized and they're active producing, so 20 hives. And from experience, as you move from year 1 to year 2, production increases. On average, what I've seen is that here you get about 8 kgs per hive. And in Western Kenya, the islands of Kisii, Nandi, Hills, and most of the places in Kakamega, it's evergreen. Means that there is actually rain throughout the year. So there is always nectar and pollen. So the bees are actually active throughout the year. And from this, we are actually able to harvest every 3 months. So in a year, we harvest 4 times. So if you do your math correctly, you see that this will translate to 640 kgs. And of course, you're selling your honey for 800 per kg. You could have gotten about 512,000 per year from selling honey. This is pretty good money, but of course there are expenses involved, and we will look at those expenses. But you can now see this is how the money looks like. You need to understand the number of hives you have. You need to understand what most people ask, what you're gonna get from each hive per harvest. This is how. So on average, after year 1, you'll be getting 8. Most people say 10 kgs, but what I've seen is 8 kgs. And from Western Kenya, as I've said, we harvest every 3 months. So this is how it looks like. So on average, if you want to know, because we are doing the business of scaling, you can't just make money if you are only stuck with 3 hives, 10 hives. We have, this example is for 20 hives, but you want to scale 30 hives. You want to go to 50 hives. You want to go to 100 hives. So let's see what is the amount of money, the net income per hive in a year from one hive, and then from that we can actually use that number to scale up. So we use this 512,000. So we can do. So if we want to get a net income per hive, just based on the numbers that we've gotten here. So we can do that would be equals to 512,000. You divide by the 20 hives. This will translate to, let's see what this translates to. This translates to actually 25,600 Kenyan shillings per hive. So this is your net income from one hive. So for example, if you want to have 50 hives, you will just do, if you are having 50 hives, you will do 50 times 26, 600. And you see how much money you'll be able to get. you do this is going to be over 1 million Kenyan shillings, which is actually very decent money. So let's now look at the expenses, because this is what you have gotten in, the money, the cash inflow. But of course, we know that in any business, you're not only, this production involves some expenses. So let's look at the expenses and we see how that looks like. Let's do our table. Again, I always say I start with the item. Then we have a description of the expense. Then quantity. Frequency. Then unit cost. Then amount. So let's do our table. The first one is maintenance. We are having maintenance, yeah. Then we have this management. Expense. Don't worry, my table doesn't look that good. But of course, again, as I said, you work on this in the computer. So hopefully you'll be able to see that's maintenance, management. We have harvesting, transport, 2, 3, 4. These are the major expenses that I'm aware of for now. And of course, here we are having our 20 hives. I'm trying to break it down in my own way, the best way that actually you can kind of arrive. You're doing a business plan, how things are going to go. Doesn't mean they're going to go this way. And sometimes when you start a business, you will have some other expenses. So your business plan will be customized in your own way. And of course, this is for me to give you an idea so that when you're working on your own business plan, you can use these ideas actually to activate your brain and say, oh, okay, maybe you forgot that this is another expense that I can put here. But for right now, we're just doing this, and you see the way I'm doing this. And then, of course, we said we will look at year 2 because we can do year 1, but let's look at year 2. We know that the frequencies we will be harvesting 4 times in a year. These are the numbers look like. And for what I've gotten from experience, for maintenance, each hive will require about 250 shillings. And always let's remember that everything is in Kenyan shillings. 250 shillings. Maintenance, what I mean is that usually where you have set up your apiary, somebody needs to maintain this place. The place where your apiary needs to be very clean. And at the same time, even once you get your hives, even when you want them to be colonized, after some time they have not been colonized, you're going to need to have someone there. It's either you're doing it yourself, but assume that you have a job and, you're not there full time and you're having someone maintaining your bees. It's either yourself, which is still it's a cost, or someone else doing it. If hives have not been colonized, sometimes you have to check them out to find out, that there are some other insects in there. Sometimes I find lizards, spiders inside the hives, and whenever there is some foreign, insect or, lizards and whatever in the hive, bees cannot get in. So you have to be inspecting this. So there is a bit of work that is required to inspect it to make sure that things are okay. So each time, someone has to do that. Of course, there's a cost for that. So that's when I mean maintenance is maintaining the apiary and maintaining the hives themselves. So there is a cost for it. So management, I assume, this is that if you're having a formal job and you're starting this to see whether this business is gonna pick up, before you fully get in this business, of course, even yourself, you're gonna be going to check out to see what is happening. You're gonna be managing this business. You're gonna be doing all this business plan. You're gonna be looking for the market. All of these things you're doing. You're trying to manage the business. All, of course, there's a cost for that. So you have to pay yourself first, as we always say. So you should give about 500 shillings by eye in a full year for that cost. And then during harvesting, harvesting is not. It's actually, from my experience, harvesting, there's a lot of work. The time when we harvest, because usually we harvest at night, we start harvesting about 6:30 in the evening, because in the evening bees become docile, they're a bit calm. So even as we go with our smoker, we smoke out the bees, we try to do this at night. So sometimes we can harvest all the way to midnight, depending on how many hives we are harvesting for that, we are harvesting that night. So, it's a lot of work. So, of course, you can't do it yourself. Again, as I said, you're going to need to get someone helping you. There is a cost. So, usually, I try to put a cost for doing that. So, in a year, I put about 200 per hive, per harvest. Then transport. Once you've got an honey is actually very heavy. As we said, we sell honey in terms of kgs. Honey is... we consider it in terms of weight, not in terms of volume. So that's why we're not selling in terms of liters, but we are selling in terms of kgs. So transporting this, let's assume you're somewhere in Western Kenya in a village, and you have to transport your honey to a nearby town or city or to Nairobi. Then of course there is an expense involved in that. So I put about 200 shillings per harvest. If we do this math correctly, I could make mistakes here, but I'm assuming that, of course, I'm showing you this, you're following up, and it makes sense. The most important thing is for you to understand. It's not for you to really see these numbers the way they are. You understand exactly what I'm doing. If you understand what I'm doing, there's no problem at all. Then you can be able to customize and do it in your own way. If we do our math, this comes to 20,000. This comes to 40,000. This comes to 16,000. And this is 16,000. And total expense we get here is 92,000. 92,000. So this is the annual expense that we incur. So now, once we have gotten this expense, let's see, in a typical year, if you're having 20 hives, how much money you're making. So the way we do this, to get the net profit, we would do we had our production, we got 512,000. So then we will minus our expenses, which is 2,000. And this comes to 420,000 Kenyan shillings. So if you want to understand, this is the amount of money you get, net profit you'll be getting in a typical year from having 20 hives. If you want to see what this translates per month, you can, of course, so monthly income. You can do 420,000 divided by 12 months. This comes to 35,000 Kenyan shillings per month. This is decent money. The other day I was looking at analysis that actually in Kenya, people who make, people unemployed, informal employment, it's about 2.5 million to 2.7 million around there. And on that 2.5 million, it's only about 10% of those employed that make over 100,000 in Kenya, and about 70% of employed people make less than 50,000. And they are spending all the time at work, and they're making 30,000. So you can really see, and as we have discussed before, time is very important in your life. You need to make money so that you can free time. So now, if you get, of course, involved in this business by setting up your 20 hives, having all these expenses, having someone there taking care of them, you end up having a net income of 35,000. And there is not much you do. Bees, you don't feed them. You set up the hives, you make sure that everything is okay, you have somebody checking them out once in a while, and then you harvest and you make money. And as we said, the lifespan of an hive is 15 to 20 years. So you can see. And from this, of course, you can scale. If this is 20 hives giving you 35,000, what if you go to 40 hives? You will get 70,000 a month. That's very decent money. You go to 60 hives, you will make what? You will make over 100,000 a month. It's just 60 hives. And the cost of starting this business, as we discussed last time, is not that much. So you see that this is very, very beneficial. So one more thing I wanted us to look at before we conclude our business plan. Let's look at the payback period. Amount of space. Let's look at the payback period. And the C. Payback period. So what we know now, if you've been following Kennedy, in the first video I shared on our business plan, we got the total cost of starting this business, the capex, came to about 159,500. But of course, because of the miscellaneous, like I forgot to mention that you need a smoker. A smoker is about 2,500. So if you have some other miscellaneous, some other items that I forgot, you see that about 170,000, you can start this business. So now, and we have seen that from year one, the income was 144,000. We have seen year two, the income is, after expenses is 420,000. Basically, you can see if the total cost is only 170,000. The first year you could have already taken care of about over 50% of the expenses. Of course, there's a bit of expenses here, so you could have taken care of 50% of your capex the first year. So you can see probably in the first harvest, you could have already got back your money that you invested in this business. So I can say that the payback period for this beekeeping business is about, so I can say the payback period is 1.5 years. That is very decent business. Most businesses that a lot of people do, payback is 5 years. I engage in real estate, payback is 10 years. But you can see that from doing beekeeping, your payback period is 1.5 years. Then after that, you start enjoying money from a small investment. So this is a simple business plan that we have looked at here. And of course, you can scale up this business in any way. You want to have 20 hives, is okay. You can do 50 hives, you can do 100 hives, you can do 1,000 hives. And they don't need to be at one place. You can have apiaries all over the country. You can have them in Western Kenya, you can have them in in the coast. You can have them in Kajiado, you can have them in Nukambani. There are so many places that you can set up the apiary. Of course, one thing you need to remember is that depending on the location, like right now, if you go to the dry areas like Eastern Kenya and Northern Kenya, you harvest now, we go down, you will only be harvesting about twice a year. So depending on the place, so you can look at the numbers and see what makes sense for you, because it's a business, and then of course you love it, you get in the business. So I think this is good. We have looked at this, and as always, I encourage you that let's get engaged in beekeeping. There are different reasons. Of course, it could be that you want to you love nature, you want to preserve the environment, and you can start this. You can start it as an hobby. You can start it as a business. You want to make money. You're tired of what you're doing, and you're like, let me try this. For example, there's a lot of people doing chicken, and sometimes they're not making money. Of course, because chicken, you have to be feeding them all the time. They have so many diseases. You start beekeeping, you don't feed them. They don't have many diseases as compared to chicken. Maintenance for beekeeping is not that high. So it's a good business to start. So I encourage you that if you think this is something that works for you, let's get involved in beekeeping, work on a business plan, do your own research, and then let's start. Of course, as I always say, you cannot be perfect. We start, but just start. You can perfect things as you start going, then you can get things, you can make things better. But just start. If you don't start, you can be talking, you talk, but there's no starting. So even me, since I started beekeeping, I've seen big things happening. I've been having a lot of free time, by profession. I'm an engineer, I'm an electrical engineer. But beekeeping is a science, it's an art and it's a science. So let's get involved in beekeeping. Thank you, and see you in our next video. And if you like this kind of information, can you subscribe to our channel so that we can continue bringing you knowledge of this kind. See you next time.